Welcome to the Real Estate Syndication Show. Whether you are a seasoned investor or building a new real estate business, this is the show for you. Whitney Sewell talks to top experts in the business. Our goal is to help you master real estate syndication. And now your host, Whitney Sewell.
This is your daily real estate syndication show. I'm your host, Whitney Sewell. Today, our guest is Whitney Elkins-Hutten. Thanks for being on the show, Whitney.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
Yeah, Whitney, as a real estate portfolio consists over 1,100 plus residential units and 14 plus storage units across 7 states. And she's interested in helping others do the same thing. And I'm interested to hear about the residential versus self-storage and just her experience and how she got there. And Whitney, why don't you start us by telling us a little bit about your background and how you got into this real estate thing called syndication?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've always been passionate about helping others just live their best lives, and through leveraging the most precious resources they have, which are time, energy, money. And up until about 2016, I translated this passion into dabbling in real estate and other businesses, and I experienced some big successes and also some failures. But it wasn't until about 2016 that something shifted for my husband and I, and that's when we watched my husband's government pension and benefits become a political pawn, if you will. And we realized that our futures just weren't in our control. So we decided, hey, we need to no longer dabble, and we took control of our financial future through real estate. And as you said, today our portfolio consists of over 1,100 residential units and 1,400 self-storage units across 7 states. And then also I just help others do the same thing that I've done.
Nice. So, give us a little history of like the first, syndication, or when did you learn about syndication, and what made you want to pursue that model in real estate?
Yeah, I actually learned about syndication pretty early on in 2016, whenever my husband and I really dove into real estate in a more serious capacity. We looked at acquiring residential rental units, and I had actually done live-in flips before that. And we were kind of like, this will work. However, we were always questioning how quickly could we scale, because one of the reasons we wanted to do is, build up, reserves for retirement, but also, just shore up our own cash flows in case one of us wanted or needed to step away from our jobs. We just knew that, individual purchases necessarily weren't going to get us there, and started looking at multifamily, and syndication popped on the radar. And so I'm like, oh, wow, I don't have to figure out how to take down a whole unit by myself, but I can work with partners. And so that was just, it made sense, from a business operations standpoint. That's my background. And so that's really, we just kind of leaned into that part of building out that part of our portfolio.
So how did you all educate yourself about syndication? How did you feel confident about moving into that route, or going into that first syndication from, say the single family side? That's a lot of people's holdup. They feel like, I could never do that. I could never own a 100-unit property, or that's, maybe 10 years from now, or I'm going to build a duplex and fourplex. And, so how did you all break that barrier of that mindset shift and just, making it happen and having the confidence?
Absolutely. So we actually are in that transition stage right as we speak, because we have invested as limited partners in other people's deals. So right now we are not in a general partnership. Therefore, we don't own the deal. We're not putting it together and going out and finding the investors ourselves. So we've taken the stance that being investing in other people's deals and becoming a limited partner has put us in a position to where we can actually learn the business at the same time as earning cash flow. And you get real boots on the ground experience. Not to say that, guru workshops, don't work. I mean, certainly there's a time and place for that, but this is a little bit more hands-on experience. And because we're in multiple deals, we can actually see how different markets are operating, different size of properties, how the loan actually can affect returns, what's a good deal, what's not a good deal. Now, that doesn't say that we haven't made mistakes. I mean, quite honestly, my first investment in the syndication has been the largest thorn in my side right now. But I have all confidence in the world that the syndication will actually turn around, but that's been a very cheap learning experience for us for what not to do in a syndication.
Hmm. So can you give us some guidance? Let's say, the passive investor LP that's listening right now, that's saying, okay, I'm looking at possibly partnering with someone or investing passively, in a syndication. What's some advice you can give to them, when they're looking at all these deal sponsors or syndicators? How do they know someone that they want to invest with or somebody they should really shy away from?
Sure, absolutely. So, just from my learning experience, when you're investing in syndication, I think we all get really excited about the cash flow, the profit splitting on the back end, what the equity split looks like. Sometimes we get allured by the numbers like, hey, there might be a 400 unit property, but really at the end of the day, you're investing in somebody else's business. You're investing in the person that's running the deal. No, it doesn't matter how beautiful that property is. If that person can't actually execute on the business plan, then the deal isn't necessarily a good one. So that would be the first step that I would really encourage anybody that's getting into syndication passively, or if you are wanting to be a GP, general partner, that you really understand that the business is about investing in people. Then from there, educate yourself on the different levers of a syndication. One book that I love is Joe Fairless's Best Ever Apartment Syndication book. Great for the person who wants to get into syndication, but it's actually made me a better syndicator because now, or a lead LP, because now I can actually evaluate a deal more effectively.
I agree completely. I'm reading parts of it again as we speak. Great book. I highly recommend. I'm glad you brought that up. So what are some questions maybe we should ask a deal sponsor, maybe that you would ask, how do you, just to learn a little more about their background so you can be more confident that they're going to be able to execute on that business plan?
Sure. It's kind of like if you have been in business and you have to hire a team member, or if you're, a single family residential investor and you're having to hire a property manager, starting out with a lot of those questions are, what's their background? Do they have a business background? Do they have background in syndications? If not, what are their translatable skills that they can build in or bring into the deal? Also, what's their team like? Again, this, syndication is, at the end of the day, that's exactly what the word syndicate means. It's a team sport. You gotta, not one person is gonna have all the strengths. So what does their team look like? Do they have the property manager in place? Do they have the realtor in place? Who's analyzing the deals? Who's, working with the investors? What is that? What's communication going to look like? I think, being on the passive side, you want to make sure that once you invest in a deal that you're getting privy to all the information, be it monthly or quarterly statements. If there's an issue that comes up with the property, how are they going to let you know? And then just really looking for somebody who's open, honest, and transparent. Nobody's going to take care of your money like you would. So it's really building a lot of trust with that person and them with you.
So what were things that stood out about maybe the most recent syndication that you invested in, that really drew you to that person or that deal?
The most recent, I actually just wired money today. Funny enough that you say that. So the person that I'm investing with now, he and his team, this is probably their 10th syndication. They've executed on a very similar business plan multiple times, have really proved their business model. They understand where their weaknesses are, and they feel quickly and problem solve to get those opportunities taken care of really quickly. He's also very trustworthy in the space. He's really made himself a thought leader in the space. So he's, what that tells me is that not only is he invested in his own education and the education of his team around him, he's willing to network extensively. And so he's got a wealth of wealth of people that he can pull from.
Nice. So, I hear you and I talked a little bit about before the show, but about developing systems and helping people to grow their business. And I hear you're pretty good at that, or you're working on it. I thought maybe you could give us some tips. And I know you also have a business where you all have been rehabbing homes and doing things from a distance. And I know a lot of listeners have questions about how to do that. Maybe their market doesn't work and they're looking at other markets, but they're afraid of that. Well, how am I going to hire a contractor and those types of things? And I felt like you could speak to that. And so, rehabbing from a distance, give us some pointers.
Sure. Yeah. So we didn't actually jump right into that. When we started building our single family rental portfolio, we actually stepped into turnkey first. Actually, I take that back. We bought a property right here in our market. And we quickly realized, hey, we don't want to be hands-on landlords. That's just not for us. I mean, we have a small family and I kid you not, every time we left town, the toilet broke. Something happened to the property. So we were like, okay, what does the next evolution look like for us? So we invested in turnkey, and we've always gone into any sort of investment with kind of a child's mind, just being very inquisitive and actually not taking our real estate portfolio as a passive investment, but investing passively so we could actively learn. So we invested in a few turnkeys, and my husband and I just kind of looked at it one day. We were like, we can do this. Like, really what we're doing is we're investing with somebody, a very strong property manager, and who also is a realtor, knows the market, is very well networked with contractors, is in great communication with us. Let's just go to him and ask him and utilize his system. So really for us getting into rehabbing from a distance, we're tapping into somebody else's system that they've already built. So that's huge. Understanding like, how are they finding deals? How are they analyzing deals? How are they finding their contractors and working with their contractors, and all of that. For us to build our business and be able to scale and be able to analyze multiple deals at a time, we had to also do our own legwork and put together systems. And people get a little leery when they hear the word system. A checklist is a system. So just making sure that you're keeping, start small, keep a checklist. You can go on the web, you can go on Bigger Pockets, and download somebody else's checklist and probably start there. And then just add to it as you learn, as you do your own research. And then make sure that you run the same checklist every single time. That's bit me in the bud too a couple of times. Or actually one time I remember I didn't get an estoppel agreement. There was a property we bought that had a tenant in place, and I didn't get the estoppel agreement, essentially them confirming what the rent was on the property. I go to close, place it with my property manager, and it was $100 less a month. And you're like, I didn't look at my checklist. So it keeps you from making your own, once you learn from a mistake, you don't repeat it again.
Wow. So what are some other systems maybe you've put in place to help grow your business faster that we could all apply?
Yeah. So other systems that you can take a look at is basically, I think pretty much any business podcast addresses this, making sure you're not working in your business, but on your business. So really identifying those parts of your business that you're spending the most time at or you really don't love, and putting together a checklist or a training document to where you can train somebody else. Last year, I was spending so much time doing bookkeeping, and I don't like bookkeeping, and my husband's actually pretty good at it. So I put together a training document, and we've shifted that off to him. You can shift it off to a virtual assistant too. So getting you out of parts of your business. And then also anything that's a funnel, like your leads funnel, that would be a great system to have in place. So with our turnkeys and even going into syndication, we have a checklist. Like if a property comes across our email or on a property search, if it's not this particular year or after this many bedrooms, this many bathrooms in this 3 or 4 small residential farm area in the 2 cities that we're investing in, we don't even take a look. Like if it's a 2-story house, we generally don't take a look anymore. Like, we are constantly honing our systems as we learn more about our business. And like, again, those are just simple checklists that anybody can put together. Those will keep you from making, it will make your business easier, but also keep you from making mistakes.
Great. So also, going back to the syndication part too, I wanted to ask you about the residential versus self-storage, and kind of give us a little breakdown of your all's experience from the residential to the self-storage and how you got into self-storage also.
Yeah, self-storage, that's actually one deal. All those 1,400 units are from one deal. It was we got into the deal, we were actively looking for a self-storage deal, and we got into the deal primarily to create a diversification in our portfolio of what they call a non-correlated asset. So something that necessarily doesn't, if residential real estate starts going soft, self-storage might still hold. So really just having, if you're looking at stocks, it'd be like having one and, a growth stock versus a value stock, something like that, things that are not quite correlated to each other. This particular self-storage caught our eye because they were layering on a business plan on top of that to bring in a name brand on the self-storage. In this particular case, it was a U-Haul brand that we're bringing in. And whenever you took a look at the area, it was one of those situations you're just looking at and going, this is a no-brainer. It's completely rented out now. What it was the developer who had developed the unit but never brought in the brand. And he was kind of done with his part, left it for a value add for somebody else to take to the next level.
Wow. So how did you find that deal sponsor as far as for self-storage? Was this somebody you already knew?
It was somebody that I already knew. And I'd actually, before my husband and I were accredited, we were networking with investors. And when I met this gentleman, he was like, great, call me back in 5 years or whenever you're an accredited investor. And I was like, accredited investor. Okay, great. So I was just like, it really seems like I would have more opportunity if I were an accredited investor. The opportunity arose for us, and when we were able to contact, I reached out to him, and at that point in time, he was just like, hey, I have a deal. I just lost one person out of this deal. Do you want it? So it was really just kind of fortuitous circumstance that it worked out. But my husband and I had put a plan in place and really focused on getting to that accredited status, which has opened up additional doors for us.
So now that you've done some self-storage, you've done and you started with the residential and some of the rehabbing and turnkey. So why pursue syndication now? And why not just keep doing the turnkey residential single family?
Scaling. We're to the point in our business where, you start getting a flywheel going, getting the first, second, or third property are probably the hardest ones. And then after that, your systems get better, your knowledge gets better, your networking gets better. You're bringing in more income, you're adding to it from your day job, and you can really start scaling faster. We've hit a point in our real estate development, in our business where we're just looking at it and saying, hey, we want to double our portfolio this year. We can, that if we continue doing it how we've been doing it, we would essentially be tripling our workload, or we could get multifamily deals and do probably the same amount of work, but get the unit count that we're looking for.
So what advice, Whitney, do you give someone that comes up to you and says, hey, I really want to get into this business also? Maybe they've had a few single family homes and they, I want to scale also. What do they need to do?
Do you mean in single family or in multifamily?
No, they want to get into the syndication business, maybe preferably apartments, and but they've just had a few single family homes, and I want to scale just like you are, Whitney, and grow this, learn how to do this syndication thing.
Yeah, I would say getting educated. That's really the path my husband and I have been taking, is just really educating ourselves. You can do that several different ways. You can do that through reading books, listening to podcasts, paying for mentorship, or like what we have done is actually invest in other people's syndications with the intent of learning from the actual syndicator.
And what would you say has been the hardest part of the syndication business for you so far?
Well, funny enough, I'm actually a very introverted person, and funny enough, I thought I was going to be like the money raising and talking to investors. I'm not going to say that that's been easy, but easier than I thought. For us, it's been actually finding a deal that works. Where we feel comfortable bringing in other people's money and really, being a custodian of that.
So what's the number one thing that's contributed to your success?
Breaking down my goals into an actionable plan that I can execute. I think if anybody's been listening to the Bigger Pockets podcast, they just rolled out their 90-day intention journal. And in that podcast, they did roll it out. They did a great job of really breaking down what a leading indicator and a lagging indicator are, which I really, couldn't do it justice to try to explain it here. But I think people focus on the wrong metric. They might say, hey, I want to buy 10 properties this year. But that goal is nice, but it's a wish. Like how can we bring the goal setting back to the now, so to speak, and say, what do you need to do to get to those 10 properties? And then focus on that action as your daily goal. Looking at, 20 deals a week, making 5 offers, getting 1 accepted, and doing that month over month over month.
Yeah. So reverse engineer it, right? Really figure out step by step what we need to do today. So what's some way that you have recently improved your business that we can all apply to ours?
My husband and I, we are actually looking to, we've actually invested in Stessa. It's a online bookkeeping platform, and really looking to kind of streamline and automate our bookkeeping. That way we can bring my husband in on a different part of the business and put his skills to better and higher use.
Nice. Well, Whitney, you've been a fabulous guest. I really appreciate your time and the content you provided to the listeners. Tell the listeners how they can get in touch with you or learn more about your business.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Yeah. You can find me on LinkedIn, Bigger Pockets, or we're going to be launching our website here very soon at ashcapitalllc.com.
Nice. Thank you again, Whitney. And I appreciate the listeners being here. I hope you also go to lifebridgecapital.com where you can connect with me and you can schedule a call and I'll help you any way I can. And you can also go to our Facebook group and you can learn from experts like Whitney and we can grow our business together. Thank you all, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.
Thank you for listening to the Real Estate Syndication Show, brought to you by LifeBridge Capital. LifeBridge Capital works with investors nationwide to invest in real estate, while also donating 50% of its profits to assist parents who are committing to adoption. LifeBridge Capital, making a difference, one investor and one child at a time. Connect online at www.lifebridgecapital.com for free material and videos to further your success.